They're growing tobacco in Virginia and Maryland. Now, tobacco is pretty hard on the land. I mentioned this last week. Tobacco is very hard on the land and really sucks the nutrients right out of the land relatively quickly. But the land had the right kind of characteristics, the right kind of rainfall, the right kind of flooding to make it very good for growing tobacco. Also has the right weather for I should know this. My partner's family is from Kentucky. Her dad grew up on a tobacco farm. When you cut the tobacco and then you put it in the barn and it cures for curing the for curing the tobacco. Sam. Why is there good farming in Delaware but tobacco in Maryland? It has to do with the sound here, the Chesapeake Bay, and it has to do with the elevations and the flooding. Yeah. So the thing about wheat is you don't want land that floods because wheat is very susceptible to rotting. And so you want land that drains pretty well to grow your wheat. And the Delaware land does, and the Maryland land is you're going to get a lot more humidity when you go to Maryland than when you go to Delaware. South Carolina and Georgia, rice and indigo. If you're growing rice, you want to be growing rice in land that doesn't drain very well, right? Rice needs lots of water. Why we grow rice in Sacramento, I'm still trying to figure out. But there is all that rice on the right of I-80 when you're just about to turn to Tahoe. I guess because Sacramento was protected by a series of levees, and without the levees it would be one big swamp. So rice, you need very swampy kinds of land. If you've been in South Carolina and Georgia at any time during, they have like summer. I don't think they have no seasons. That's it. And it is like hot. It is really hot and really humid in South Carolina and Georgia. Everybody, I don't care who you are going to have curly hair if you go to South Carolina and Georgia because it's humid there all the time. It's humid there all the time, and that makes it really good for growing rice and indigo. Okay, so those activities, my little travel log there, through the South and through the Northeast, that's all based on natural endowment, right? It was all based on what's happening with the land, and that determined the activities in the pre-colonial era as well as in the colonial era. Key dates. I don't care if you know these dates, but I want you to see them once. So what do we have? We've got fighting for independence from Britain, so we've got the war actually starts in April 1775, the Declaration of Independence. July 4th, 1776, Revolutionary War goes until August of 1782. Then we need to establish a framework for the new country. You guys did all this in history and civics class. I'm not going to do it any more than what I'm doing right now. There's the Articles of Confederation, which are in 1777. That doesn't work very well, blah, 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 blah. You learned it from your civics professor in AP government. The Constitutional Convention is 1787, and the Constitution is ratified in 1788. And President Washington, the first president, whose birthday we celebrate in February, is inaugurated in 1789. The Bill of Rights, which is the first 10 amendments to the Constitution, are ratified in 1791. So there's a whole lot that happens over about a 15-year period, between 1776 and 1791. Going from being British colonies to being the United States. Here comes a new slide. One of the things that comes out of this period that's in the Constitution but has its roots in British law is the system of property rights. So the system of rights that governs how we own property in this country has its basis in the Constitution, and that itself comes from British common law and British law. Let's just say that. Okay, there's 6 characteristics of the property rights system. I've just blown through like 8 pages of my notes. Hold on. And here they come. All right, 6 characteristics. 1, ownership is perpetual. If you own a piece of property, whether it's the pen in your hand or the land under your house, that ownership doesn't have an expiration date. It's not that you own that pen until 12/31/13. Once you bought that pen, you owned it. Your ownership is perpetual. It has no expiration date. So ownership has no expiration date. 2, obligations are fixed and certain. That doesn't mean there's no taxes. It means there's no perverse obligations. For instance, Jerry Brown doesn't have kids, does he? Suppose he did. Suppose Jerry Brown had kids, and suppose Jerry Brown's kid was going to get married. Jerry Brown can't come to everybody in California and say, we're going to throw, what's his name? Gosh, Ann and I are going to throw a big party for a wedding for our kid, and we need everybody to kick in $5. You can't do that. So you can't go to the property owners and have some sort of willy-nilly, the president, the crown, the governor says, I need some extra money for a party that we're having. So the obligations have to be fixed and certain. There can be taxes, but it can't be the sort of unpredictable, not legislated sort of thing. Right of waste. This is really important. Right of waste means that you can chew on that pen, and the only person who's going to bug you about it is your mother. That it is your legal right to chew on your pen as much as you want. You have the right to do with that pen what you want. You can use it to write. You can use it, I just used write in 2 different ways. You can use it to take notes. You can use it to stomp on. You can, I can't chew on this one because it's electronic. You can use it to chew on, right? You can do whatever you want with that pen. You can use it as a dart. I don't care. It doesn't matter. Once you bought it, it's yours, and you have the right to do with it as you wish. Similarly, with your property, you have the right of waste. So you have the right to tear out walls and tear out this and cut down trees and so on within limits that subsequently have been set by zoning in various communities. What's your name? Nick. What about the rights of eminent domain by government? So when the government exercises its rights of eminent domain, so it says, we need your property in order to build a freeway because it's going to go right through your house, they have to compensate you. So they can't just take your property and say, sorry, Nick, you're out. We got it. They have to say, Nick, we're willing to pay you $100,000, and you have the right to say no. And you have the right to bargain them up until they hit a price that you're willing to take. So watch what you put on Zillow for your, buy this house. Zillow, which has property values on it, has this buy my house. If you offer me X number of dollars for my house, I'll sell it to you, no questions asked. So make it really high if you're in the path of a new freeway. Okay. 4th, freely alienable. Strange phrase. Simply means it could be sold. So when you buy something, you have the right to sell it. So you can turn around and sell that pen to the person sitting next to you if you wanted to. You have that right. No one can take that right away from you. Once you buy something, it's yours to do with as you wish. You can trash it, you can use it, you can sell it. You also can bequeath it. That means you can will it to somebody else. So a 5th right that we have with property is it can be willed to someone else. It would be a strange thing to will. And I leave to my favorite younger brother my chewed-upon pen. And when your younger brother inherits your chewed-upon pen, that inheritance is direct. That's the 6th characteristic. Which means that your chewed-up pen doesn't go back to the government, and then the government gives it to your brother. That you can bequeath things directly from you to your brother. So inheritance is direct. It doesn't have to go back to the crown. It doesn't have to go back to the government. The government doesn't take a share of it. You get to directly bequeath part of your whatever you own. So those rights which come from British law are enshrined in our Constitution, and they govern how land is owned, how property is owned, how anything from the pen you're writing with to the iPad to whatever else is owned. Okay, some maths. How am I doing? Pretty well. So when we talk about the beginning years of the United States, beginning years of the United States. Notice I'm already done with the colonial period. So that's done. Colonial period's over. So now we're in the United States. And initially, the land mass, let me mark it with my pen. The land mass of the United States, when we begin there in the 1770s, 1780s, is just the part that I've squiggled around here on this map. So it's basically east of the Mississippi and south of the Great Lakes and some line that you draw along that connects sort of the Great Lakes. That's the land mass of what's now the United States, starting around 1780 or so. In 1785, so before the Constitution is ratified, so this is part of the time period when we're operating under the Articles of Confederation. The Northwest Ordinances are put into place. And the Northwest Ordinances, there's two. There's one in 1785 and one in 1787. The textbook spells out which one is which. I don't care. So there's two Northwest Ordinances in 1785 and 1787. And they set down a set of rules. In addition to that set of property rights that we just ran through, the Northwest Ordinances set down a set of rules for how we will settle this land that's in then the Northwest. Now, you may think Northwest is Seattle, but at the time, remember, the United States ends here at the Mississippi River. So the Northwest Territory is east of the Mississippi and west of Pennsylvania and Virginia above the Ohio River. It's the territory that becomes Ohio, Indiana, Illinois, Wisconsin, and Michigan. Yep, there it is again. Okay, same map. I had that put someplace. First piece. The first piece, there's four, I think I have four characteristics of the Northwest Ordinances that matter to us. First piece is the land is surveyed into 36 square mile townships. So the government is trying to figure out how they're going to settle all this land, which is the Northwest Territory. And should they sell it? Should they give it away? How are people going to know what is their land as opposed to somebody else's land? They want to set up some rules for deciding whether or not there can be additional states. So can this territory eventually become another state or another set of states? It becomes 5 sets of states. And all of this is part of the ordinances of 1785 and 1787. Okay. So first piece is they're going to survey the land into 36 square mile sections. They don't want people to go out and settle this land and just sort of willy-nilly decide, my property ends here, and let's see, that's one end of it, and it goes over to here. No, I think I'll go to here, and it goes over to here. That's kind of willy-nilly, right? Because you don't know. Christina doesn't know when she comes along and wants to settle. She doesn't know whether my land has ended right here or over here or over here. If it's just kind of some willy-nilly, I just sort of threw a dart out or put a rock down. There's a lot of rocks. You don't know which rock was the one I chose. And so the decision is to survey the land and divide the land into these 36 square mile townships. There's a chart of this on the handout for today. So each township, which is not the same as a town. So a township is simply 36 square miles. And a lot of them are not named. They're simply numbered. When we went to try to find, actually did find, the property that my grandparents had homesteaded in the Dakotas, it was Township 26, Section 14, the northeast quarter, and so on and so forth. So these townships are 36 square miles. They're divided into 36 sections. Each section is a mile by a mile. Those sections can be subdivided into a half section, which is 320 acres, into a quarter section, which is 160 acres, into a quarter section, which is 40 acres. And the land is surveyed using the system of principal meridians. And so they go out, this is where you get the Army Corps of Engineers. They go out and they survey all of the land, except Texas. Anyway, they survey all of the land. I was going to try to find one of the markers, because if you walk along and you pay attention, periodically you can see one of these markers in the ground. Because you'll find a marker, and it's a round marker about, about 4 inches diameter. It's in the ground. It's got sort of a little X, or, cross in the middle of it, and it's marking the corner of one of these sections. They're everywhere. You can find them all over. Every place from the initial colonies to California and down, except for Texas. And so they start out with these principal meridians, and they use that as a basis point, and they survey 36 square miles, another 36 square miles, another 36 square miles. And that's why when you fly from here to Chicago, you fly over the country, and it looks like, wow, look at that. It's all like sort of lined up with squares, except for where there's a little creek that goes along, that's kind of cockeyed. That's because in the 1785 and 1787 Northwest Ordinances, they decided they were going to have a surveying system that pre-surveyed all the land and clearly drew the boundaries of each piece of land. So here's a question. Same groups. Why would surveying the land increase the A of our production function? Why would having the land surveyed, as opposed to willy-nilly, why might that increase total factor productivity, increase the A in that production function? Same groups as before. Make sure you come up in your group with at least 3 things. So same groups that you had earlier. If you weren't in a group, move around. They were retired in the 1840s. They were an independent republic. That's why they do talk about secession. There's a compilation of a lot of data documents called historical statistics, which we're going to work with for the second conference. So it's a 5-volume set, has lots of data in it. But that's the result of individual scholars finding things. Individual scholars finding things as good as since he starts making 1798. All the records are available to anyone. Are you big force? Okay. You were Steve.
Yeah, I think like the survey the land, like if I know people, I'm sure that the land belongs to me. I have more incentive to cultivate my incentive. Henry? Yeah. Thank you.
Texas is not part of the state court. Texas is only public until 1842. Okie doke. So let's see what we got. What sort of answers did we come up with? I'm going to start. I already know. I have somebody calling. Henry, what'd you get? Okay, so it means that people have more of an incentive. So it increases the incentive to cultivate their land because they know it's their land. Right? Good. So it increases the incentive to cultivate. What's your name? Sharada. Okay. So it decreases disputes over the land, and those disputes might take away from production. They might be costly, and that would get folded into that A of total factor productivity. Simplifies the process for settlement of claims. Yeah, which is, I think, simplifies the process for getting the land because it's predetermined where the borders of the land are. You don't have to go out there and put down a rock. Yeah, a series of rocks, a whole lot of rocks. All right, so it simplifies the process for getting the land. What else? Anything else? What's your name? Jacob. Okay, good. So if you had some randomly shaped piece of land, it would be kind of difficult to expand your operations. But if you have a rectangular shape of land, then it's easier to buy up the next rectangle and expand your operations. Good. Anything else? Yeah, what's your name? Angela. So it prevents hoarding, it prevents people from, does the surveying system prevent hoarding? Okay, how so?
Otherwise, people, I imagine, just go and market as much land as possible, but being able to go through everything.
I think that you're talking about the difference not between surveying and not surveying, but between owning and squatting. Yeah, so we'll come back to owning and squatting in just a second. Anything else about surveying into rectangles? Okay, so if you know where your borders are, you can most efficiently use the land that you have. Is that what you want to say? Does that work? Yeah. Okay. Anything else? Rectangles are good. The geometry is easier, much easier math, right? Base times height, that's good. Down in the middle, what's your name? Cameron. Good. Lower transactions costs. Because if you have well-defined borders, then the cost of transferring the land, we sort of touched on this earlier, but the cost of transferring the land is cheaper if there's well-defined property rights, if there's well-defined edges to the property. Good. So lower information costs as well. So that if you want to buy, so if you own the land, where was this comment? If you own the land and you want to buy up the piece of land next to you, it's well defined what that is. You want to buy up the north, no, you want to buy up the southeast quarter of the next section over. So you go down to the land office and you say, who owns the southeast quarter section of sections 14 in Township 221? Because I own the one next to it, which by then you figure out how to say it much more efficiently. All right, one more. Anybody have one more? I'll take one more. Burning one. Brooke. Does that have to do with the surveying, or does that have to do with something else? Is that about rectangles versus odd shapes? Because all we're looking for here is rectangles versus odd shapes. Okay, so easier to establish communities when the land is surveyed into rectangles than when it's odd-shaped communities. Okay. All right, so what else? That was the first. The first of our characteristics of the Northwest Ordinances was surveying the land. The second is the land was going to be sold by the federal government to private parties. In setting up these Northwest Ordinances, they needed some way of gathering revenue. They just fought a very costly war against Britain. They had a lot of war debt to retire. And so the government decided they were going to sell the land, not give it away. In the textbook, there is the sequence of prices and characteristics. So at first it's this many dollars for that many minimum acres, and then there's no credit, and then there is credit, and then there's no credit, and then there is credit, and then the price goes up, and the price goes down, and then the minimum acres goes up, and then the minimum acres goes down, and blah, 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 blah. So there is a 30 to 50 year effort to try to find the equilibrium price. That's how I would characterize that. As trying to find the price at which they can basically sell. At times they're trying to maximize revenue, and at other times they're trying to maximize settlement. But in any case, they want to have a price there that encourages settlement and gathers revenue for the federal government. Third characteristic is slavery is prohibited in the Northwest Territory. So slavery is allowed in the South, but it's prohibited in the Northwest Territory. This is going to come back, and we're going to talk about this later because it becomes a big issue. Ian.
If you're measuring over a hill, do you
Yep.
measure it by the ground or what's actually parallel?
If you measure over a hill, it's like a satellite. Yeah. So it's a yeah. Okay. And fourth, the territories could become states. So the fourth characteristic of the Northwest Territory, the Northwest Ordinances, was they set up a scheme by which the territories could become states, and those states would enter the union on an equal status with the existing states. So they didn't want to have the first 13 are somehow special. It's not like your older brother's more special than you. We love all children equally. So all the states are equal. The Northwest Territories become states, and they come in on an equal status with all of the other, with the original 13 states. The details are in the book. 5,000 men of voting age over the age of 21, and it becomes a territory with its own legislature. 60,000 inhabitants is admitted as a state. So they don't have to jump through any hoops. They just have to get a certain number of people settled in that territory in order for it to become a state. Okay. So what do we wind up with? We wind up with 5 states in that Northwest Territory. We wind up with the states of Ohio, Indiana, Illinois, Wisconsin, and Michigan, which includes the UP, the Upper Peninsula of Michigan. So Michigan's the one that looks like a hand. Ohio, Indiana, Illinois. Once again, alphabetical. This time left to right. Illinois, Indiana, Ohio. Which state is Chicago in? Good. So Chicago's right about there. If you're not exactly sure, draw a big dot. Works pretty well.